Shalom. First and foremost, I want to give all praises, honor, and glory to Yahweh, Bahasham Yahushai, Bahasham, Recha Kodash. Double honors to the elders and the apostles of Great Millstone, and peace and blessings to the elect. And today we're going to go into the book of Jeremiah, the 9th chapter, a lamentation over Zion, which pretty much the chapter is to be summed up in a sentence that would cover it. So this is Jeremiah chapter 9, verse 1. Oh, that my head were waters, and mine eyes a fountain of tears, that I might weep day and night for the slain of the daughter of my people. And here Jeremiah, is obviously, being like metaphorical here, but he's saying like, if only I had enough tears in my head, right? As in like your tear ducts, to be able to hold enough water to cry day and night because of how bad he felt concerning this destruction the Lord was going to bring to Israel, right? Verse 2, oh, that I had in the wilderness a lodging place of wayfaring men, that I might leave my people and go from them. Let me just read that in another translation. Oh, that I could go away and forget my people and live in a traveler's shack in the desert. So Jeremiah is saying this because he's like, these people, all you see living amongst them is just, it's like Lot, right? It's just wickedness. It's just, stiff-necked, hard-headed, just willful, okay, day and night. It says here, for they be all adulterers, an assembly of treacherous men. So once again, it's just like left and right. It's just wickedness and iniquity, one on top of another on top of another. It's like the feeling you get when you see a bunch of like degenerate Jake, just ganged up doing, folly, right? It's like, damn, like I don't even want to be in that setting. Verse 3, and they bend their tongues like their bowl for lies, but they are not valiant for the truth upon the earth. So their mouth is full of lies. They're constantly, it's like somebody, because your mouth or your tongue, which helps you articulate your words, is like a bow, and the words that come out of it are like the arrows. So when it says here, they bend their tongues like their bow for lies, meaning like they prepare their mouth to speak lies constantly, but they are not valiant for the truth upon the earth. So when it comes to the truth, be it in word or in deed, that's the last thing that they're willing to stand for. For they proceed from evil to evil. So they go from bad to worse, right? They do, last week it was this week is another. And it's just, constant adding on iniquity onto iniquity. It's like how scammers today advance, right? They go from original archaic scamming techniques to more advanced techniques, and they know not me, saith the Lord, right? Meaning that they don't acknowledge the Lord. Of course, they knew the God of Israel, but when they says no, meaning here in the sense of like being well acquainted with the Lord and following his ways. So based on their way of life, they acted like they didn't know the Lord. Like today, they'll say you acting brand new. Verse 4, take ye heed every one of his neighbor, and trust ye not in any brother. For every brother will utterly supplant. Supplant here is like pulling a fast one on you. And every neighbor will walk with slanders, right? Lies, gossip, tale-bearing, talking shit. Okay, and it was all to, and this may sound like typical, but there's some modern day examples that can show you, right, how dangerous or how wicked this can be, or how it can go, right? So like one example being, I remember I watched a video, it was of this woman who got on somebody's Instagram live to basically talk about how some time ago she lied, right? I think, she went to her, I don't know if it was her man at the time or her ex or whatnot, his place, something happened. She got into an argument or whatever. She wasn't happy. She punched herself in the eye, basically made it look like she was beat, came home to her brothers and said that this guy did it. They went and got their guns and went over there, and then X, Y, and Z happened. And now one of her brothers is in jail. The dude is dead, if I remember correctly, and she's out here roaming free, laughing about it. So that's a form of supplanting, right? That's a form of slander, because you're using falsehood and deceit to manipulate somebody to your gain, at least to what she thought. That's the level of supplanting and slanders that we're talking about here. We're not just talking about some basic, hey, you got something behind your ear, ha ha ha. No. Verse 5, and they will deceive everyone his neighbor and will not speak the truth. Why? Because if they can lie to get their way, to get their benefit, sure, they'll do it. Somebody will meet you at the ATM and tell you, yo, my card is messed up. Yo, if you could just deposit this check for me, and then when it goes through, I'll send you this and yada, yada. And then boom, they scamming you. And I'm just using modern day examples to because that's what we're more familiar with, to paint the picture. It says they have taught their tongue to speak lies and weary themselves to commit iniquity. See? So in teaching their tongue to speak lies, they've accustomed themselves to constantly be liars and deceivers, and weary themselves to commit iniquity, meaning that they tire themselves out. They labor in iniquity, in wickedness, in ungodly deeds. That habitation is in the midst of deceit, meaning, and the Lord is saying here that you dwell in the midst of people that are deceitful. Through deceit, they refuse to know me, saith the Lord. Because through that way of lifestyle, right, that wicked mindset and wicked way of living, they have turned their back on the Lord. Refusing to know the Lord is by the Lord sending his prophets to tell them, hey, stop departing from your God, from your maker, turn back and seek the Lord. They say, no, we're not going to do it. We don't care about that. We're not interested in that. We want to continue in the ways that we've been living in. We want to continue in the adulterous ways, in the wicked ways, in the idolatrous ways. Verse 7, therefore, thus saith the Lord Yahweh of hosts, behold. And once again, like I mentioned, you notice, you see therefore a lot when it comes to like the Lord's replies or his resolve to bring judgment. He always says therefore, meaning because you have done such and such, or because you have refused to do such and such, as a result, or therefore the Lord says this. Because of your iniquity, the Lord therefore sent the prophets. Because you didn't listen to the prophets, therefore the Lord is going to bring judgment. So the Lord, rarely do you see him bring judgment preemptively, right? Most of the time, if not all, there's a warrant for it. Therefore, thus saith the Lord Yahweh of hosts, behold, I will melt them and try them. So here he's likening Israel to metal, right, or precious, metal that you put in a fire, right, to melt it, to try it, to see if it's good quality, right, if you can refine it. And in our time now, on a literal sense, the Lord is actually going to melt them. He's going to put Israelites, right, wicked Israelites, in that fire, like it's like they're gold or silver, except they're going to be, as the Lord mentioned, reprobate silver. They're not going to make it out this fire. And in any case, it says here, and try them, for how shall I do for the daughter of my people? I mean, like, what else is there left to do? They don't listen to words. They don't listen to reason. They're not afraid of me. So now I'm going to try each and every one of you, with tribulation, and see what what you're really made of. And if you can't stand the trial, you'll just die. Verse 8, their tongue is as an arrow shot out. It speaketh deceit. So that every time they open their mouth, it's like they're shooting arrows of deceit. One speaketh peaceably to his neighbor with his mouth, but in heart he layeth his weight. So it's a setup, right? They speak like, I'm trying to help you. I'm trying to do this. I'm trying to do that. whether it's to set him up to be slain because this person is coveting whoever, this neighbor's, whatever it is that he wants, or whatever the case is, to supplant him or whatnot. So they make it sound like they're with you or they're on your side, but inwardly they're setting you up. Shall I not visit them for these things, saith the Lord Yahweh? So, am I just should I just sit idle and watch them do this iniquity and just continue on waxing worse and worse? Doesn't this warrant judgment? Shall not my soul be avenged on such a nation as this? For the mountains will I take up a weeping and wailing, and for the habitations of the wilderness a lamentation, because they are burned up, so that none can pass through them. Now remember, once again, Jerusalem was on a hill country, right? It was in a mountainous region. So in the process of this actual destruction, okay, of buildings being burned and walls being broken, the greenery, the life, the vegetation, all that would also be affected, right, within these particular regions. That's why it's mentioning taking up weeping and wailing for the mountains and the wilderness, to emphasize, how desolate the aftermath of this destruction would be. As it says, because they are burned up so that none can pass through them, neither, meaning there's basically little to nobody left, right? Neither can men hear the voice of the cattle. So the areas where typically you would hear either sheep or cattle, because they make sounds, right? But they would come there, they would graze and so on. That typical sounds you would hear, it would be no more. Both the fowl of the heavens and the beast are fled. They are gone. So the land is basically desolate. It's abandoned. It's very few people left. It's not the same as it was before. And I will make Jerusalem heaps or ruins, a den of dragons. Now the word dragons here is not referring to dragons as you see the mythical creatures, but even when you look into the definition here in the blue letter, they just give you the definition of the word, right, as they have here. Dragon, sea serpent, sea monster, right, venomous snake, which you could probably fit this in here, right? Snakes, or like desert creatures, or certain creatures that really dwell in places where there are not many humans, right? And there's more like ruinous areas, lizards, and certain like jackals and stuff like that. And it says this word is a more intensive word, right, from the root word, what's that, thun, which, as it says here, dragon may be the extinct dinosaur and plesiosaurus. So while the meaning of the word could be that's not what is being referenced to in Jeremiah 9, right? Because we know historically there were no accounts of dinosaurs or dragons in Jerusalem after the Babylonians had done what they had done. Okay. So as it says here, and I will make the cities of Judah desolate without an inhabitant. This doesn't mean that there would be 0 people there, but what it means is in comparison to the original population, you would liken it on to being a desolate place. Who is the wise man that may understand this? So who's wise enough to perceive and understand this warning or this message of the Lord? And who is he to whom the mouth of the Lord hath spoken, that he may declare it? For what the land perisheth and is burned up like a wilderness. And what this is saying is why, right? Who can explain, like, why is the land destroyed? Why is it, why is this calamity come upon it, that none passeth through, that nobody's is, or barely anybody is dwelling here? And the reply would be, right, and the Lord saith, because they have forsaken my law, which I have set before them. So they can't even say they didn't have it, or they didn't know, or they were ignorant to the fact. The only thing that it comes down to is they willingly did not want to follow the ways of the Lord. It says here, and have not obeyed my voice, which the Lord's voice came by way of his prophets, neither walked therein. Right? So they didn't take heed or walk in the instruction of the Lord, but have walked after the imagination of their own heart, meaning their own mind, whatever they thought they wanted to do, whatever they thought was best for them is what they did, whether it was actually good or not. And after Baalim, which is plural, right, for other gods, I think in the Hebrew is Baalim, right? Baal right here. And then the yum at the end, making it plural. So you have the word Baal or Baal, which is Lord, and can be used, or here it's used in reference to idols, right, or other gods, which are really idols. But here it's plural. So the Lord is referring to the different idols that Jake would worship and follow, even idolizing the sun and the moon and the stars, which their fathers taught them. This is why he refers to them as a generation or a seed of evildoers, because it's like passed down. Why do people celebrate Christmas today? Because when they were children, that's what their parents those were the customs their parents involved them in. So it's just something they do because that's something they grew up with. But when you go to places that, you know, the people there don't keep these customs, it's not something they do. It's new to them. If they come here, they're like, what the hell is Christmas? You know what I'm saying? Like, what? Thanksgiving? What? Mother's Day. Therefore, thus saith the Lord Yahweh of hosts, the God of Israel, behold, I will feed them, even this people, with wormwood, which is bitter, okay, and give them the water of gall to drink, right? And I believe the word gall goes into like something that's not, you know, pleasant to drink, maybe even poisonous, right? Ra'ash. Yeah, it says here, gall, venom, bitter, poisonous. And what the Lord is saying by this is that he is gonna bring evil upon them, right? Because giving somebody wormwood or poison to drink is an evil thing, right? It's not gonna be a good time for them. It's like when the scriptures say that the Lord would, you know, give you the water of affliction. There's no water actually called affliction, okay? And then it's not like there's a special fountain where the second you drink it, your body just starts getting beat. You know, you feel like there's whips on your back as you're drinking the water. It's just a figure of speech for a hard or difficult time. Verse 16, I will scatter them also among the heathen, whom neither they nor their fathers have known. And this happened when the Babylonians came, but also in general, right, in future. And that's why Israel ended up all in the four corners of the earth. In fact, this is in Deuteronomy 28, right, that if you didn't take heed, you didn't listen, you would be scattered. And I will send a sword after them till I have consumed them. And that's why it is that Jake is always on the receiving end, right, of the wrath of these nations. Okay, that sword represents that, you know, that destruction by way of typically, you know, like a nation taking over you, oppressing you, killing you. And as it says, till I have consumed them, but not till the full consummation, right? As the Lord has mentioned that as well, that he would not make a full end of his people. But majority of our captivity, right, and our experience as a nation has been on the receiving end of the sword. Thus saith the Lord Yahweh of hosts, consider ye and call for the mourning women. So, you know, listen to what I'm saying, lay it to heart, and go prepare mourners. And they're actually, you know, professional people, right? Women, men, whatnot, mainly women, that like you can hire to come and cry, right, at your funeral and stuff. Like they're professional mourners. I think there's a name for them, but let me see. Professional mourners. It says here, professional mourners are individuals hired to attend funerals, and you can see mainly it looks like women, and express grief, a practice that has existed since ancient times in various cultures. They are paid to provide a larger attendance, create an atmosphere of sorrow, or express emotions that family members may be unable or unwilling to show. Their task can include wailing, crying, offering condolences, and giving eulogies, with performance styles varying greatly by culture. So, as the Lord is saying here, call for the mourning women that they may come, and send for cunning women. The word cunning here, one of the definitions is skilled, right? So this would be the women In order to be a professional mourner, you got to be cunning, because you have to be able to sell it, right, as though you're actually mourning. If somebody came to the funeral and they didn't know who you were, they would think that was like your dearly beloved husband. You know what I mean? And in order to do that, you got to be somebody. You got to have that cunning, right, skillful, shrewd, and crafty, energy to be able to pull off something like that. So when it says that, right, as you can see, it says learn, skillful, wise. That's what it means by the cunning women, right, that they may come. And this is to paint the picture, right? Because why nobody brings a mourning woman to a birthday party or a joyful event. So by the Lord saying this, he is using that to emphasize not that you're actually gonna need to like hire mourning women, but the event is gonna be so bad, right? When he tells you, look, if somebody was to tell you, yo, go prepare, what I'm saying, like, yo, start training, go get arms and so on. They don't need to tell you anymore for you to deduce that, like, okay, hold on, is something bad coming? Like, if somebody's telling you that, you're not thinking in your mind, oh shit, we're about to have a pool party, right? You're thinking, okay, maybe there's like a rival gang or there's some war or something dangerous is about to come. So when the Lord says here, go call for the mourning women, is to emphasize the point that you're about to have such a devastating time that it would warrant, on a normal occasion, these mourning women to come and mourn, because there's going to be that so much death. And let them make haste and take up a wailing for us. And wailing is like crying and weeping and screaming, that our eyes may run down with tears and our eyelids gush out with waters. And sometimes that's one of the uses of mourning women, because sometimes it may not really, like, the family members may still be in shock to where they can't actually, mourn or cry. But just as laughter is contagious, so is crying, right? Depending on the situation. So by them doing that, it can sometimes invoke that actual mournful spirit in those that are around. That's why it says, right, that our eyes may run down with tears and our eyelids gush out with waters. For a voice of wailing is heard out of Zion. Like, you've seen that, right? You've seen scenes like that where somebody's telling a sad story or something they're going through, and it's a very emotional story. But the second they start crying, then you feel even worse, right? And depending on how close you are to the situation, it might make you even start crying. Similarly, you may hear a joke, something may not be as funny, but the fact that somebody else is laughing so hard, it makes you even chuckle, right? So it says here, how are we spoiled? Or for a voice of wailing is heard in Zion. How are we spoiled? We are greatly confounded, because we have forsaken the land, right? Meaning they had to leave the land by force, because our dwellings have cast us out. They no longer had a home, because they were taken captive into a foreign land. Yet hear the word of the Lord Yahweh, O ye women, and let your ear receive the word of his mouth, and teach your daughters wailing, and every one her neighbor lamentation. So prepare them, because they're going to be doing a whole lot of that. For death is come up into our windows, and is entered into our palaces, to cut off the children from without. So the children that will be playing outside, cooked, and the young men from the streets, cooked. So there's going to be death on every corner. So basically, just start preparing yourself. Speak, thus saith the Lord Yahweh, even the carcasses of men shall fall as dung upon the open field. So people are going to be dying so much that it's going to be like dung, like, feces on the street. And as a handful after the harvestmen, right? So like the remains after the harvest, right, that are still left, it might have fallen down, because the main part is really taken, sent to the threshing floors. But as the remains of, or as the handful after the harvestmen, and none shall gather them. So you'll have those bodies there, and it will be like disregarded, because, you're not even going to have people in that time be in the right state of mind, or even have enough people to go around trying to find bodies and bury them. Thus saith the Lord Yahweh, let not the wise man glory in his wisdom, neither let the mighty man glory in his might, nor let the rich man glory in his riches. But let him that glorieth glory in this, that he understandeth and knoweth me. Why? Because the wisdom of man it perishes with man. It's vain. In fact, it's foolishness before the Lord. And all it does is really, it just gains you, like praise among men, right? The glory of the mighty man, once again, it's vain. If he was to fall ill, it doesn't matter how mighty he was, he would die, he'll succumb to it. So glorying in that is vain. King Solomon, did he not have wisdom? Was he not mighty? Was he not rich? But at the end of it all, what did he say? It was vanity. What is not vain, however, which is why the Lord says this, is understanding and knowing him. Because the works you do for the Lord, and by being recognized of the Lord, that's eternal. That follows you for all eternity. This does not. Because if you were King David in your past life and you came back in the reincarnation in slavery, nobody would know who you were. Okay, so that glory of man in that life won't follow you because nobody knows who you are. Okay, but if you know the Lord, that the Lord is going to look out for you. He's going to remember that, right? If you are of the Lord's elect, for example, the elect of the Lord were set up from the foundation of the world. Guess what? That still holds throughout all the generations, which is why in this time they're going to be delivered. Not necessarily because of what they've done in this life, but because of who they were or who they are. So the Lord says, let him that glorieth glory in this, that he understandeth and knoweth me, because that is not something that a lot of people are privy to, which is the understanding and knowledge of the Lord. He reveals that only to a certain few. That I am the Lord Yahweh, which exercise loving kindness. Whoa, that was crazy. Anyway, which exercise loving kindness, judgment, and righteousness in the earth. For these things I delight, saith the Lord Yahweh. See? And those that do understand the Lord understands his balance with all of these. And that's why we seek the Lord and turn to the Lord. Because we understand that even in our faults, the Lord is merciful, right? He's righteous. He is loving, loving and kind, but he is also, he can be vengeful, and he does have, as the scriptures say, as great as his mercies are, so are his judgments. So you know how to live and move accordingly. Behold, the days come, saith the Lord Yahweh, that I will punish all them which are circumcised with the uncircumcised. So now he's letting them know that all of you in this region, both Israel, Judah, when I say Israel, I mean Judah at this point, and the neighboring nations, the Moabites, the Ammonites, the Edomites, the Syrians. Because when the Babylonians came through, it wasn't that they were targeting only Israel. They were taking over everybody in the region. In fact, Ezekiel also prophesies about how the Ammonites and so on would also have their judgment when the Lord was to send this empire through. So the circumcised was Israel, the uncircumcised were the neighboring heathens. As it mentions, right? Egypt and Judah and Edom and the children of Ammon and Moab and all that are in the utmost corners that dwell in the wilderness, for meaning those that didn't dwell, like, for example, those that dwell in maybe like, Saudi Arabia or like somewhere further from the, the core region of the Levant. All of them would be punished. For all these nations are uncircumcised, and all the house of Israel are uncircumcised in the heart. So though physically, right, Israel would be considered circumcised, the Lord says he was going to punish all of those in the region together and treat them all, Israel or Judah included, as uncircumcised, because these heathens are uncircumcised, by nature, but Israel was now behaving uncircumcised in heart. Okay, hence they would also be suffer the effect or the wrath of that punishment that the Lord had pronounced against that region. So that brings us to the end of the book of Jeremiah, the 9th chapter. Lord willing, this is edifying to the elect. In closing, I want to give all praises, honor, and glory to Yahweh, Bahasham, Yahushai, Bahasham, Recha Kodash. Until next time, Shalom.